are they living in? This thing went on forever, and it was written in 3 committees and then brought together, and there were hearings and testimony. And so for them trying to push through this Trump care like that does everyone a disservice. Tarbell.org is where people can find out more about Tarbell, the new news service that Wendell Potter will be launching. I'm really excited about this. Please keep in touch and let us know how it's going.
Absolutely, Nicole. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a wonderful weekend.
You too.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Wendell Potter, he is really one of the good guys. And I'll tell you something. If you weren't paying close attention during the fight over the Affordable Care Act, get Deadly Spin. I'm telling you, I read it in a weekend.
I read the news today. Oh, boy.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
Answering questions for the first time since a special counsel was appointed to take over the investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 elections, Donald Trump said it was harmful for the country.
Well, I respect the move, but the entire thing has been a witch hunt, and there is no collusion between certainly myself and my campaign, but I can always speak for myself and the Russians, zero. I think it divides the country. So I can tell you that we want to bring this great country of ours together. I'm fine with whatever people want to do, but we have to get back to running this country really, really well. Believe me, there's no collusion.
Trump took 2 questions at a joint presser with Colombian President Santos, reiterating his vow to stamp out the drug trade and build a wall on the border with Mexico.
Walls work. Just ask Israel. They work. Believe me, they work, and we have no choice.
That pronouncement came in response to a question about coca grown in Colombia, which Trump kept calling cocoa, and the cocaine that finds its way to the U.S. Trump then called on
Peter Baker,
who writes for the New York Times. But NBC News' Peter Alexander tweeted, Trump pointed at me, called on at Peter Baker NYT, and at Scott Thurman got the mic. Whoever it was asked the question that got the most pointed response of the day.
Did you at any time urge former FBI Director James Comey in any way, shape, or form to close or to back down the investigation into Michael Flynn? And also, as you look back...
No. Next question.
All righty then.
As you look back over the past 6 months or year, have you had any recollection where you've wondered if anything you have done has been something that might be worthy of criminal charges in these investigations or impeachment, as some on the left are implying?
I think it's totally ridiculous. Everybody thinks so.
Not everybody.
And again, we have to get back to working our country properly so that we can take care of the problems that we have. Director Comey was very unpopular with most people.
Not according to acting FBI Director Andrew McCabe and the FBI rank and file.
I actually thought when I made that decision, and I also got a very, very strong recommendation, as you know, from the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein. But when I made that decision, I actually thought that it would be a bipartisan decision, because you look at all of the people on the Democratic side, not only the Republican side, that was saying such terrible things about Director Comey. Then he had the very poor performance on Wednesday. That was a poor, poor performance. So poor, in fact, that I believe, and you'd have to ask him, because I don't like to speak for other people, but I believe that's why the Deputy Attorney General went out and wrote his very, very strong letter. Wrong.
Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein spoke to all 100 U.S. senators on Thursday, telling them that he knew that the president planned to fire James Comey as director of the FBI before he wrote a memo outlining the reasons for his dismissal. That, according to 3 Democratic lawmakers who were in the briefing, contradicting the story the White House told about the impetus for the firing and which Trump seemed to return to in this presser. Although he didn't name his pick to replace Comey as FBI director, he did heap praise on the agency he had previously lumped in with the rest of the intelligence community when he compared them to Nazis.
I cherish the FBI. It's special. All over the world, no matter where you go, the FBI is special. The FBI has not had that special reputation with what happened in the campaign, what happened with respect to the Clinton campaign, and even, you could say, directly or indirectly with respect to the much more successful Trump campaign.
Trump leaves Friday for his first trip as president, as Seth Meyers explains.
On Friday, he sets out for his first foreign trip to Europe and the Middle East, and aides were hoping it would represent a chance to reboot his presidency. Instead, with all the turmoil going on, Trump seems less than excited about the trip. According to The Times, Trump A confirmed homebody has expressed dread about the trip, asking aides whether it can be shortened to 5 days from 9.
No joke there. That's true.
During this trip, Trump will meet with leaders of NATO, our most important military alliance. And according to a recent report, NATO is scrambling to tailor its upcoming meeting to avoid taxing President Donald Trump's notoriously short attention span. The alliance is telling heads of state to limit talks to 2 to 4 minutes.
Again, no joke necessary. That's true, too. On his show Thursday night, Seth Meyers did dig up some old audio of then-candidate Trump, proving to be quite prescient, but pointing at the wrong person.
The FBI now has multiple open criminal investigations into Hillary Clinton. And now she's going to run the country. She'll be under investigation for years. She'll be with trials. I mean, we went through it with him with the impeachment and the lies. Aren't we tired of this stuff? This election will determine whether we remain a free country in the truest sense of the word, or we become a corrupt banana republic controlled by large donors and foreign governments. This is collusion and corruption of the highest order, and is one more reason why I ask my Attorney General, I will ask, to appoint a special prosecutor.
It's almost like Donald Trump is a time traveler sent to warn us about himself. Oh, God, I'm too late.
If you appreciate our What's News reports, I hope you'll consider making a contribution. What's News and The Nicole Sandler Show are 100% listener supported. We depend on you to be able to keep doing this work. For more information and to help us out, please visit NicoleSandler.com/donate.
Mary had a little man. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
You can't handle the truth.
Who's there?
I love you, Randy.
Your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Oh, dear God. It's Friday, you bastards.
You know, girls, it's great to live in a democracy today, where freedom is everywhere.
Where?
But girls, we often take this freedom for granted.
Really?
Freedom of speech.
You know it.
Freedom of thought.
What?
And freedom of action.
Do something.
But you know, gals.
What?
Just because a bunch of men signed that Declaration of Independence in 1776 doesn't mean that freedom was for men alone.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, you take Tom Jefferson.
Okay.
Ben Franklin.
You know.
John Hancock.
Adorable.
There's a hell of a guy for you right there.
So cute.
All these men had wives.
They did.
They probably had a few broads on the side, too.
The Upper East Side.
These women wanted freedom just as much as their men did. But, gals, I wonder, do we? I think it's time that we women thought about it a bit.
Okay.
Hell, I think it's time we did something about it.
Oh, hell.
So come on, fellow females of the 20th century.
21st.
Be glad that you're an American.
I am.
Proclaim your freedom. Freedom! And attention. Pledge allegiance.
Allegiance and... Let's have a day of gratitude, shall we? And here's what we're grateful for. I would rather be on United Airlines being dragged down the aisle than be part of the press corps right now on freaking Air Force One all the way to Saudi, where one can only hope they don't have an infidel ban because they won't let them in. Oh my God. The news is breaking like 5 seconds, 6 seconds, 22 seconds, like a half hour before the show. It's like unbelievable what is going on. This little inquiry is going very, very fast. And Congress is going to proceed with the counterterrorism investigation started by one James Comey, whereas Mueller is going to do the criminal investigation. And just now, there are two articles. One came from the New York Times. The other one came from the Washington Post. God love you, reporters. This is why we should be grateful that we're not part of the traveling press team that has to follow this elephant with the shovel. Let's just hope Twitler is in airplane mode right now and can't tweet. Let's just hope, because these two articles came out just as he was walking up the staircase with Melania, who will not be able to attend the all-male Toby Keith concert in Saudi. What could go wrong with Toby Keith? We put a boot up your ass? Oh, what could go wrong with Toby Keith in Saudi Arabia at an all-male concert and Melania sitting in the hotel room because she's not allowed to go? Yeah, I mean, at least she's used to sitting in a tower. You know what I mean? She's almost Rapunzel already. Anyway, here are the two articles that came out. One, New York Times. Trump, this is unbelievable. Trump told Russians, you know, in that very famous, it's hard to believe this is only 2 weeks worth of news since he fired Comey. I mean, it's just, wow. But it is. It's only 2 weeks worth of news. Anyway, Trump told the Russians in that Wednesday meeting, fired Comey last Tuesday. Wednesday, he hosted Kislyak and Lavrov in the White House and told the American press corps to get the hell out, and allowed who he thought was Lavrov's private photographer, turned out to be the Russian news agency TASS photographer, into the meeting, right? And then slammed the door and said, no Americans allowed. Okay, turns out there was some Americans allowed, and they were part of the Trump administration. They were the note takers. And turns out that when he met with the Russian officials at the White House last week, and the American journalists were barred, that the White House officials in charge of giving readouts to the American people of foreign meetings were present, okay? And here is what he said, and this came from official notes taken from inside the Oval Office, okay? Quote, this is our president speaking to the Russians, to the freaking Russians. I just fired the head of the FBI. He was crazy, a real nut job. I faced great pressure because of Russia. That's taken off. I'm not under investigation. What the? And let me tell you that this was taken from a document that contained these comments based on notes taken from inside the Oval Office. It has been circulated as the official account of the meeting. One official read the quotes to the New York Times, while a second official confirmed it. Sean Spicer is not disputing it. Oh, snap! This is why I'm so glad I am not on that plane. Can you imagine what is going on? I mean, how in the world do you even take a deep breath as you're flying to Saudi with all this crap smell in the air? Okay, that's one article. And the other one is this one. Russia probe, and this is the Washington Post. Russia probe reaches current White House official. People familiar with the case say. That's pretty, that's pretty fast. That's pretty, Mueller. The Swan is on the move. Swan is moving. Yeah, it goes like this. The law enforcement investigation into possible coordination between Russia and the Trump campaign. Okay, this is the collusion. This is the all right? This is collusion. This is the counterterrorism part. The law enforcement investigation into possible coordination between Russia and the Trump campaign has identified a current White House official as a significant person of interest. A current official. So this isn't Flynn. This isn't Manafort. This isn't Carter Page. This isn't Roger Stone. This is a current official. This could be Jared Kushner. This could be Beauregard. This could be Rex Tillerson. But I'm thinking, this could also be Reince, Reince, who went out there and talked to Comey and asked Comey to back off also. I don't know if you remember this little detail, this little nugget, but, Randi Rhodes does. I remember everything. Reince actually was part of the White House group that went to Comey and asked him to back the hell off and to please tell the media that the president is not under investigation. And, of course, Comey wouldn't do it because it might not be true. Either way, Comey was never going to comment on who was under investigation, who was a person of interest, and who was a target. He was never going to say. And there was an article yesterday that said that Comey was very unsettled by Donald Trump, and he wanted Trump kept at a distance and he told President Trump that if he wanted to know details about the Bureau's investigation, he should stop contacting him directly, but instead follow the proper procedures. Have Don McGahn, White House counsel, send all of his inquiries, any of his inquiries, to the Justice Department, to Beauregard. But he couldn't because Beauregard recused himself, so he should have gone to the deputy, and the deputy was very busy writing memos saying that Comey treated Hillary unfairly with the email. So he was calling Comey. And Comey explained to Trump how the communications with the FBI was supposed to work. And he said he believed he had effectively drawn a line after a series of encounters that he had with the president and other White House officials that he felt jeopardized the FBI's independence. Comey was overseeing at that time when the president was calling him and tweeting him and telling him to come and shaking his hand and trying to grab him and bear hug him in public. That was 2 days after he was elected. That long, beautiful glide by 6'8" Comey across the right. That was a meeting where Trump wanted to thank the people who protected him at the largest inaugural ever in the history of our country. That was 2 days after the inaugural. And Comey, now Comey's friend, Benjamin Witz, who is the editor-at-large at Lawfare. So I'm guessing Dan Abramson knows a lot of this stuff, so that's a good place to go. Maybe we can book him too. By the way, on the other side of this break, everybody's been sending me, like I needed you to send it to me, like I would miss such a thing. The Dutch documentary about the dubious friends of Donald Trump and the entire investigation by lawyers and others who had, prosecuted some of the Russian mafia in New York. The Bayrock Group, there's a live lawsuit about that, and Felix Sater and all these guys. And one of the guys who's prominently featured in that Dutch documentary is Michael D'Antonio, who wrote The Truth About Trump, which is a biography of Donald Trump. And it's a fair biography of Donald Trump. And it was named one of the best books of the year and an editor's pick by the New York Times. Also the Christian Science Monitor, Business Week, Chicago Tribune, and a whole lot of others. So on the other side of the break, we'll call Michael D'Antonio, and he can talk to you about, all this stuff that preceded his presidency. The interesting thing about how Trump needed money because, the Trump effect of going bankrupt 6 times in a row made him somebody that nobody would lend to here in these United States. And so he started looking for other, sources of cash. Anyway, the Comey article was the big article until these 2 others came out. The Russia probe reaches current White House official. People are putting money on the fact that it's Jared right now. I could tell you that. That's where they think. But I'm not so sure it's not Reince. I'm not really so sure because, Jared did lie on his clearance application, but his lawyers cleared that up for us. You know what his lawyer said? He said he prematurely filed his clearance, his FS-86. He prematurely filed, and he will soon update it to include his meetings not only with Kislyak, a Russian, prematurely sent it in. He prematured is what he did. It happens to guys. And then we pretend we understand. In this case, no. I don't pretend to understand why he prematurely, filed his, security clearance request and left off, under penalty of perjury, the fact that he met with one of the biggest Russian banks and Kislyak. But his lawyers cleared it up. His lawyers, don't worry, he'll file the updated soon. So, people think it's Jared, but I don't know who it is. I honestly don't. It's, it's classified is what it is. And then the other story, Trump told Russians that firing, quote, nut job Comey eased the pressure from the Russia investigation. This based on notes taken inside the Oval Office, circulated as the official account. I remember in this meeting, another small little tidbit, Donald Trump gave code word classified, top secret, no foreign eyes, intel information to the Russians from a partner of ours on the war on ISIS, who did not give permission for it to be released to the Russians. Good meeting, huh?
Clear for takeoff.
The Randi Rhodes Air Force. Air Force. RandiRhodes.com.
Buy a stinking podcast.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1950. That was the day 31 dock workers were killed and hundreds more were injured in an explosion at the Raritan River Port in South Amboy, New Jersey. Workers were loading ammunition from freight trains onto ships. The freight's ultimate destination was Pakistan. Practically every structure in South Amboy suffered some form of serious or structural damage, with windows blown out everywhere and debris reported as far as 25 miles away. 5,800 more unexploded anti-personnel mines had been strewn about the port. Demolition experts had to be called in for removal. A subsequent fire at a nearby agricultural phosphorus plant complicated their work. The blast was caused by the detonation of 150 tons of military explosives and gelatin dynamite. The piers, equipment, and railroad cars were all demolished. Over a dozen nearby barges were either on fire or sank. Emergency operations went into effect and a state of emergency was declared. Key industries in the immediate area were seriously damaged, including the International Smelting and Refining Company, Pennsylvania Railroad maintenance shops, and the power plant for New Jersey Power and Light. According to a report by the National Board of Fire Underwriters and the Fire Insurance Rating Organization of New Jersey, packing of the mines and fuses by the Kilgore Company was not in accordance with Army standards, and labeling was confusing. The shipped mines were labeled as M1A1, though all parts but the detonator were identical to M1 mines, discontinued by the Army in 1942 for their apparent defective fuse, leading to accidental firing and explosions. The report refrained from drawing a certain cause or assigning blame. Instead, the underwriters offered a number of possible scenarios and recommendations for best practices to be implemented. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Well, it's clear that's something gold, and find out why. Now is the perfect time for gold. Learn why gold survives every government, every currency, every economic crisis. Call ITM Trading today at 1-888-OWN-GOLD, and they'll send you a free gold buyer's guide. They've helped tens of thousands of people acquire physical gold and silver, and they can help you too. Call 1-888-OWN-GOLD, 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 1-888-OWN-GOLD.
For a commercial-free, on-demand, whenever, wherever listening experience, visit RandiRhodes.com for your personal premium podcast today.
He has a history of 6 bankruptcies in the 1990s, so none of the major New York banks would lend to him. Trump was pretty much unfinanceable.
Henry is dug deep into Donald Trump's business contacts. According to him, since his bankruptcies, Trump has become dependent on shady cash flows.
The only way that he was able to finance his resurrection after 2000 was the torrent of money flowing out of Russia and the former Soviet Union countries like Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan. The investors that he got at that point were looking for safe havens or opportunities to launder money that proceeds from basically criminal enterprises.
Trump himself denies having any financial connections with Russia.
So I tweeted out that I have no dealings with Russia. I have no deals in Russia. I have no deals that could happen in Russia because we've stayed away. And I have no loans with Russia.
The thing to notice when Donald Trump talks about his relationship with Russia is that he always says, I have no business in Russia. He doesn't say that Russians have no business with me.
That is such a good point. Made by Michael D'Antonio, the author of The Truth About Trump. Now, you know, I've been reading this book. And it's a fair book. It's a fair book, but boy, oh boy, this family. Unbelievable. So please welcome to the show Michael D'Antonio, author of The Truth About Trump. Hi, Michael. Nice to meet you virtually.
Hi, great to meet you.
Well, thank you. I am enjoying your book, but, every time I get comfy with it, every time I sit down with it, the news breaks and I have to go and pull audio and video. So I'm up to the part of Starrett City.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, this guy has been frenetic his whole life. He's just picking out 10 or 15 major themes is a difficult thing because he's bragged so much about doing so many things that don't turn out to actually exist at all. And, and for me, it was a major task just to take apart 5 minutes of an interview with him because he'd say 5 things in that period of time. I would have to go fact check them all.
And you did. Let me tell you something. Your fact checking is insane. It's so good. I can't even stand it. It's like every time I want to know, because I'm from Queens actually, and so when I was reading about Mayor A. Beam and all that, and Mayor Lindsay and all that, my parents loved Mayor Lindsay. He was a reformer. For those of you who don't know, in New York, a Democratic mayor, until he forgot to clear the streets from a big snowstorm. And that cleared the way for, Mayor Abe Beam, who was the Trump preferred candidate, because Beam was corruptible.
Very corruptible. And it's consistent with President Trump, then Donald Trump's view of the world that everyone's corrupt. This is the strange thing about him. He's got such a negative view of human nature that he starts off assuming that everyone is bad and that everyone can be purchased. I think that's what happened with Jim Comey, is he met with him, wanted his pledge of loyalty. He didn't get it. And I think it shocked him that here was somebody who couldn't be purchased.
Can you imagine that conversation actually took place knowing what you know about Donald Trump, his MO, his personality, his mentors like his dad and Roy Cohn, and all the people that, schooled him and that he learned from. Can you imagine that the president of the United States currently, who obviously is unfit, doesn't really know how anything works, doesn't care to know how anything works, would have asked the FBI director, am I under investigation, after he submits that the FBI director was begging for his job? Do you think that...
Well, of course he did this. Yeah. This is how he rolls. What I love is the little bit of information about how he tells everyone else to leave the room. And So he's going to put his arm around Comey's shoulder, although I guess he can't reach that high. Comey's a pretty tall character. But, there's no way in the world that Comey could be bought in this way. But there's also no way in the world that Trump wasn't going to try. He tried to buy me.
Oh, tell me.
Well, the first time I met him, there was a lot of conversation about how there would be a lot of money in it if I wrote the right kind of book.
Huh.
And I said, well, what do you mean the right kind of book? He said, well, a good book, a book that makes me look good, essentially. And I said, well, our definition of what makes a good book is probably quite different. And I'm thinking about the person who's going to read this and depend on me to tell them the truth. And that was the end of any discussion of a good book or a bad book. But he couldn't resist cooperating with me. I don't think there's a reporter he's met that he doesn't want to try to win over, because that attention is his lifeblood.
It's really sad. I mean, how could this man be the president of the United States? I mean, how in the world did this happen?
Well, so many factors. I think the advent of Facebook news feeds and the fact that there was a really concerted effort to manipulate the news feeds going to certain voters. They, in the Trump campaign and contractors who worked for them, tried very hard to identify the people who could be moved by a certain message. And we had all of this fake news, and what's wonderful is this guy who always accuses everyone else of being fake news peddlers is the prime exploiter of fake news, and all of that was sent out. If you were one of those identified voters, you heard about Hillary Clinton being a criminal to the point where I think at one point there was an argument being made online that she arranged for the murder of someone who worked in the D.C. offices of the Democratic Party. And over and over and over again, you got that message. And then at the same time, you had Comey, once again, intervening near the end of the election to say, well, we found all these emails on Anthony Weiner's computer. And then far too late for candidate Clinton saying, well, there's nothing there. And by the time the election rolled around, all they had to do was move 80,000 people.
Yeah.
This is the number of people who could fit comfortably in the Rose Bowl. That was it. That was the number of people who elected Donald Trump. And though Clinton got 3 million more votes, he got the White House.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that it was a razor-thin margin in the swing states that apparently were targeted, their voter registration rolls. I mean, we don't really hear a lot about this. All we hear is about the hacking of the DNC, right? But we don't hear the other part of it that was testified to by James Comey, that there was also a hack into the voter registration rolls in key swing states. And, if there was a hack into the voter registration rolls in key swing states, then getting likely Hillary voters identified and then handed off to, Cambridge Analytica or this other firm in San Antonio to target their IP, because, people don't understand IP addresses. Every computer has an address. That's its IP address, just like every house has an address, and that's your street address. So to be able to target those computers successfully and then put into the Facebook news feeds this craziness about Comet Pizza and pedophile rings and Seth Rich, this is the guy you're referring to.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. At the DNC, there was this wild reporting because Fox News refused to report any of this Comey stuff in any meaningful way all week last week and all weekend last weekend. And they were just plowing and pushing that Seth Rich was murdered. He was murdered by, and Seth Rich's family has demanded an apology and a retraction from Fox News for doing that, for insinuating that this kid was murdered by a party that he loved and worked for.
Right.
So,
I mean, the whole thing is so toxic.
It is.
We've seen with the death of Roger Ailes, the passing of the original poisoner of our political environment. This guy decided long ago that he was going to go after Democrats with the most specious campaign materials. He was behind the Willie Horton ad used against Dukakis,
right,
and then gave us Fox News, which has really destroyed public trust in the media. If you tell people for 30 years running that the media is not to be trusted and really only we at Fox News are giving you the real scoop, everyone else is lying and trying to hurt you, you erode any basis for people to have a conversation about anything. Nobody knows what's true anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting. But, there is some beauty to it. It's almost like an O. Henry play in this weird way that Roger Ailes, his death, his passing was drowned out by Donald Trump. I mean,
his creation is Donald Trump, and now you're right. He's overwhelmed any thought of Roger Ailes. Are we surprised that the culture at Fox News was predatory and involved a lot of sexual harassment? I'm not surprised at all.
Oh, I'm not surprised at all. Years ago, I mean, I've told this story a million times, but I'll just tell you in a very brief, bullet-pointed way. I went to a Fox News party. I had to go. My boss insisted that I go because I worked for the same company as Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity and all of them. So I went, and I couldn't believe the girls that were working the party, that were serving the drinks and the little, pedophores and the Franks in a blanket. They were like spray painted. I mean, like strippers. Their whole body was, spray painted, and the makeup was like professional, and yet they were only 18. And I remember being like freaked out by it. Roger was in the room, and I went over to try and say hello. And I got within a certain distance of him, and viscerally, I almost threw up. I mean, I just had this presence of evil. I could feel it, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't make... So I wandered off over where Shepard Smith was, and Shepard Smith. I said, "What's with the girls? What's with the girls?" And he goes, "Oh, those are the Fox girls. We love them." And and I mean, you could just tell that the whole atmosphere there was just objectifying young girls for the enjoyment and the pleasure of the Roger Ailes, and it was a bizarre party. It was really strange and weird. And I got yelled at that party also by Laura Ingraham, who was drunk out of her mind in a Vivienne Westwood, the most gorgeous dress I ever saw in my life. And I said to her, "Oh my God, I love that dress." And she goes, "How dare you talk to me? You trash me every day." I mean, it was just a hostile environment for a girl like me. But so,
well, and this is, I think, reinforced in the environment that Donald Trump grew up in and occupied his whole life. It's a throwback existence where you think awful things about people who aren't like you, and your prejudices become reinforced by the people around you. And I think that all of it's coming out now when you see how much trouble he has dealing with the real world and with people who might disagree with him just a little bit. I think it's echoes of his past.
How did you get involved in this Zembla documentary? There's some really amazing people in this documentary, including yourself. There are people I wasn't even aware of that were out there, like this James Henry, the economic investigator, and people that have been pursuing the Bayrock Group in court for a really long time. How did this come together? Do you know?
Well, it's an interesting story, and it's one that American press have had trouble putting together. There's so much evidence of really dirty Russian money flowing into the partners that helped Trump develop projects, that these fellows in Holland came to me and they said, "Look, we've discovered these firms in Amsterdam that are shell companies." Mm-hmm. And in fact, one and maybe both of them were created by Rudy Giuliani's law firm. And that this was the conduit for sending oligarch money into Trump developments. And I knew that this had gone on. I hadn't the resources to find these Amsterdam companies. They had that, so they said, "We want to talk to you just about how this man operates. Why would he be the one engaged in this kind of activity?" And the other folks interviewed in the documentary as well confirmed that this was money that Trump needed. He wasn't eligible to get into partnerships with the ordinary investment sources, the insurance companies and banks and bond investors.
Because of his bankruptcies.
Well, right. Who wants to do business with a guy who 4 times has had corporations go into bankruptcies costing more than $1 billion of other people's money? He just was toxic to ordinary partners, and so he wound up in bed with these very shady characters.
Now, when you mention Rudy Giuliani's law firm, are you talking Bracewell Giuliani, or are you talking Greenberg Traurig, where he is now?
Bracewell.
Bracewell. Okay.
Yeah, and so, and look, that I'm sure they set up all kinds of companies for all kinds of people, but real estate is notorious as a repository for money that is going to be laundered. The idea is to put some money from a bad source into something tangible. Diamonds are another convenient place to put this kind of money, and then you sell it. The strange part of this, one of the stranger stories of it, is there was a guy who bought, this was a guy from the former Soviet Union, bought the apartment in a Trump building 1 floor below Kellyanne Conway's apartment. And within about 6 months, he sold it, made about $500,000, and within a year of that time was murdered on the street in New York City.
Oh, wow.
And no one knows to this day who killed him and why.
Was he a Russian?
Yeah.
Oh.
And this was, it looked like a mob hit, but no one was ever prosecuted for this killing. And there are just too many of these things that happen around these developments. You know, the guy who founded or ran Bayrock, Felix Sater,
yes,
just happens to be a guy who stabbed someone in the face with a
margarita glass.
Right. You know, why is that the guy in business with Donald Trump?
And why does Donald Trump deny that he was in business with Felix Sater when obviously Felix Sater had business cards that said that he was Trump's personal advisor and was working in the Trump office building? I mean, why does this man deny everything that's so plainly discoverable about him?
I think it's because he's gotten away with it for so long. You know, the last piece that I wrote for CNN.com was about how this appointment now of Robert Mueller as the special counsel marks the first moment in Donald Trump's life where he's been held personally responsible for something. Up until this point, for 70 years running, this guy has been able to buy himself out of everything.
Yeah, and he doesn't seem to have very many friends anywhere in Washington, D.C. I mean, this afternoon, just as we were going to the show, there was two articles, one in the New York Times, I'm sure you saw both of them, and the other one in the Washington Post. And, of course, the Washington Post says Russia probe reaches current White House official. So this is moving very fast. And the other one says that I forget what the other one was now. So many things.
Well, it might have been that Trump told the Russians that now that he's rid of Comey, things are going to go better.
That he fired this nut job.
Right.
And when you read the article, it says that these were the official notes that were circulated in Washington of the clandestine meeting, and I call it that because American press was not allowed, with the Russians, with Kislyak and Lavrov. And these are the official notes. The notes were read to the reporter at the New York Times, and another official confirmed them. Spicer doesn't dispute them. This guy has no friends. He just doesn't. His own White House wants him out there, like purging him. They're like, they're like squeezing him out.
I think they're terrified for the country. That's at some point, most people in D.C., even the hack politicians, they care about the country being preserved. You know, they may want to squeeze all they can out of their opportunities, but I don't think they want our democracy to fail. And I really do think that there is fear in the White House of what this man is doing to our country.
I mean, come on, Michael. He's going to Saudi Arabia with Toby Keith. What could go wrong?
I didn't know Toby Keith was going with him.
Yeah, he's taking Toby Keith. I like women that drink beer, and I'll put a boot up your ass. It's the American way. That's who he's bringing.
Well, I'm wondering how the conversation will go with the Pope on his second stop.
Oh, well, I don't
Or is that his third stop? It's shocking.
It is shocking. Did you hear that he wanted to, it's too taxing for him. He says he's very busy and he's doing all these things. And yet when you look at his schedule at the White House, it's very light. Very light schedule he keeps. But now he didn't want to go for 9 days. He asked, could you shorten it? Could you make it 5 days? Can I come? He won't go to Masada, which is, a historic, battleground. He won't go to Masada because he's not allowed to land his helicopter on a UNESCO heritage site. Now, there is a cable car that will take you up to Masada, and you'd have to park your helicopter at the bottom. And either he's got, fear of heights, or he's just too lazy to take the cable car, or he's afraid the cable car will snap because, he eats Kentucky Fried Chicken for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
He's very fearful.
Is he?
Yeah, he has a lot of fears. When you see him descending the steps of Air Force One, when he holds the railing for dear life because he's really afraid of falling down. And
wow!
And the thing there is that he's got in his mind Barack Obama bounding down the stairs very athletically.
Really?
Absolutely. If you think about how often he still talks about Obama, he's still competing with that guy.
And Hillary.
Yeah. It's these are the ghosts that haunt him. And I think Sean Spicer made a deal with the devil, and now he's paying the price. But sometimes I feel sorry for him.
I know. I have the same emotion about it. I really do. I really do. I gave him probably 50 opportunities to quit his job. And then finally, I just understood that he had made a deal with the devil and that the devil takes his payments on the installment plan. And that's how Sean prefers to pay.
It's a hard thing. Now, if I were him, I'd invite Melissa McCarthy and her podium to the White House.
Of course. You have a sense of humor, right? It's like, Obama, singing Al Green and, going to he wouldn't even go to the correspondence dinner. That's how thin-skinned this man is.
No, I think he'll go next year.
There won't be a next year, Michael.
There may not. You're right.
Yeah.
The thing that I think is most likely to happen is that he would quit.
So let me ask you that, because you know him and I don't. I mean, I've watched a Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young concert. I was in the row in front of him, which seemed to really disturb him that I had one row better than him. Except, of course, I knew the band, and he just bought those tickets. You know what I mean? But yeah. So, and I was.
Well, I'm jealous.
Yeah, I mean, I was with Tim Robbins, and the whole. And Tim is very, very, very tall, so we were blocking his view because Tim is 6'5" and Trump's a measly 6'2", right? So. Yeah, so we blocked his view, and he was, not very nice about the whole thing. But, okay, so that said, you know him. Would he quit before he's impeached? I mean, if we found our Barry Goldwater, if we found somebody of any integrity, it certainly won't be Mitch McConnell, but if we found somebody to go to the White House and go, they're drawing up the article, sir, you don't have a chance, they're going to impeach you, I believe the Senate will convict, it's time for you to go. Would he go?
I think he would. I think he would be terrified of the humiliation of being the only president driven from office by a conviction on articles of impeachment. So once someone explained what that meant to him, I think there would have to be several conversations.
Now,
about how
reading your
works.
book, honest to God, reading your book, The Truth About Trump, and I really am enjoying it, and I really hope to finish it, this weekend, because now he's out of the country, maybe I'll have a chance. You know what I mean?
Well, at least while he's airborne.
Exactly, and I hope Twitler is on, airplane mode, so he can't. Because these articles were devastating just as he was ascending the stairs with Melania. But I just, reading this thing, it seems to me that he really has a desire to win, but he just wasn't that bright. And without all these, compromised politicians in his life and gaming the system, and guys like Roy Cohn, who came from, politics, who came from the red baiting and, understood how. I mean, he's not that bright, is he? Is where I'm going.
He has a certain kind of intelligence, but he's not curious. He doesn't learn new things. He's very good at salesmanship. So this is, I'm sales averse, so it's really hard to sell me anything. When I go buy a car, my wife calls up the salesman and says, "Watch out for this guy," because I can't stand to be sold anything. Most people are susceptible to his techniques, the emotional words and the gestures and this act that he does that is...
Is he a con man, would you call?
I think he is.
Yeah.
I don't think that he understands or believes most of what he says, but he has this desire to make the sale, to close the deal. And he'll say and do whatever is required.
Anything.
And he did not expect to win. What he really wanted was to lose and then go around complaining about it, saying that he was cheated.
And it was rigged, right? And the whole thing was rigged against him. And
And he would rather be in the position Hillary's in. He would rather have won the most votes but been denied the Oval Office.
Yeah, I can see that. I really can. I mean, the whole thing with him, I mean, throughout The Truth About Trump, which I am really enjoying it, but especially, the first 150 pages, you really get to know how he was raised and what his, as I'll say aesthetic, but, what his father and him, what they were up to and how they passed the torch and all this. But when he's caught in a lie, he's offensive about it, meaning he denies it, and then, like things like I remember when he was running, he kept saying, I don't settle lawsuits because when you do, they constantly sue you. And of course, almost every lawsuit that's ever been brought against him from the time his dad was accused of not renting to African Americans, he settles. I mean, they settle every lawsuit.
Well, right. So, I go around saying I'm 6'5" when really I'm 5'6", but I just tell everybody they really can't. They're what are they going to believe, me or their lying eyes?
Yeah,
that's the idea that motivates him. It drives him. I can persuade you of anything, and look, he persuaded enough people in enough key states to vote for him.
Yeah, 35%, of America will always support strong and wrong. I think that's, provable. You're a political writer, and I think you understand that we have a third of our country that just wants to hear, somebody sufficiently racist enough and somebody who sounds strong, whether they're right or wrong. I think Bill Clinton coined that phrase, strong and wrong, and taught it to me, because I was asking, back in the day, I used to have access to him, and I would ask him, how do you not hate people? And he would sit there and he would talk to me about it's strong and wrong, and you can't hate anybody. They only win when you hate them. If you don't, but he taught me that. But here's what scares me about Trump. He seems to be a wounded animal right now, and that might make a guy like him more dangerous, although it still makes him wounded, so yay. But does it make him more dangerous?
I think it does.
Yeah.
Look at what he's done to his family over the years. The real emblem of his character is how he handled his romantic life. He divorced his first wife, by many accounts, the only woman he ever really loved, on the pages of the front page of the New York Post and the Daily News.
Rudy Giuliani did it on TV.
Right.
I mean, these guys are really gross.
Now, what does that say about a person's character?
Right.
I think in that situation, he was terribly wounded, and he responded by doubling down on the worst of what he could do.
Mm.
I talked to his kids. Now, this is 30 years after the fact, 35 years after the fact, and they're still wounded by this.
By how he treated Ivana?
Absolutely. That was their mom, and they had to go out every day to go to school, and the newsstands in Manhattan had these headlines, "The best sex I ever had." Or
right, I saw that with Marla.
Yeah, and them hurling insults at each other.
Yeah.
And he was the primary source for those stories. Who does that to their kids?
So right. So that's a good question. Who does that? Do you think that he's capable of, I won't call it a German name, but of, let's say, terrorist sort of, I don't know, something horrible, and then using it or, pointing to it in order to scare America into making a change at the commander-in-chief level? Is he that guy?
I hope not. I hope it
Can you see it in his personality at all? Is it evident to you? Like if, yesterday when I don't know where you are. Are you in New York?
Yes.
Okay, so yesterday you had that crazy guy, drunk driver, he wasn't drunk at the time, but, a poor soldier who's got PTSD has been, arrested over and over again for violence and DWIs and all this. And he drives up on the sidewalk in Times Square, drives like 4 blocks at top speed and takes out, a woman and injures, 22 other people. I was very surprised that Trump did not use that, come out and say that this was another niece or something like that. This kind of thing. Is he capable of that?
Well, that's evidence that maybe he's not.
Okay, good. Thank you. Now I can have a good weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can get lost in scaring ourselves.
Yeah. Okay.
With this guy. He is less governed by common sense and decency than I think any person who ever occupied the office. I was going to say, I think, than any person who was ever nominated by any party. I sometimes, when I'm on panels with people, I feel like saying to them, every person on this panel is more qualified
to be president
than the guy we have. I mean, I think that's true.
Yeah, if you hang around CNN, everybody except for Kelly McInerney, you would be correct about that.
Well, even she's more qualified.
Even she's more qualified.
She speaks in complete sentences.
True.
She apparently reads.
Yes.
And when she gets her talking points from whomever gives them to her, she listens and absorbs them.
That's true.
So I wonder about those folks. What are they going to say when this all ends? And it can only end badly.
Yeah, I mean it's the only solace I take is right now this man is doing more damage to himself than he is to the country, and so for that I have this certain amount of gratitude, which is when he's the president, you have to look for it wherever you can find it. So
yeah.
Well, listen, I love the book. I can't wait to finish it. And when I do, now that I have your contact information, I'm going to send it off to you for a little autograph because it's one of those really special ones. And I would love to have that.
And you're one of the few I will now give my address to.
Oh, thank you.
I'm under so much trolling pressure here that people contact me and ask me for my address, and I can't do it anymore.
Check out my Facebook page. My God.
It's where the world is. It's sad.
Yeah, it's bad. Well, listen, Michael D'Antonio, he's written a really, really fabulous book called The Truth About Trump. Like I said, it's a fair book, I think. It didn't go for the jugular or anything. But the fact-checking, see, this is what I love the most. The fact-checking that you did, the explanation, the real in-depth, proving this or that, it's just priceless and valuable. And yet, it's totally readable. I mean, you just totally can go through that book fairly quickly. It's an excellent job. So thank you so much for sharing that part with us.
My pleasure.
Yeah, appreciate it, Michael. And have a good weekend.
You too.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Anytime.
Bye-bye.
Bye. It is a great book. I got to tell you. I mean, like I said, I'm only halfway through it because every time I sit down with it, I really do love it. It's a great book. It's easy to read, but yet it's completely fact-checked. But every time I sit down and read it, something else breaks on the TV. Something else breaks on the news. You know what I mean? He says something. He does something. He tweets something. So maybe this weekend I'll get through the other half of it. It's called The Truth About Trump. And, of course, The Dubious Friends of Donald Trump, The Russians, is available on YouTube by Zembla, Zembla. And Michael D'Antonio is in it along with our friend Malcolm Nance and James Henry, who is an investigative lawyer into finances, and the information is priceless.
To speak to Randy, call now, you bastards. 561-270-3844.
Hello.
Randi Rhodes Air Force.
Buy a stinking podcast. I love Herky Jerky because it's big protein, big flavor, big packs, and teeny tiny carbs. And that's why jerky is my favorite snack, but you cannot get the best stuff at the gas station. You have to order it online from herkyjerky.com, the best purveyors of jerky I have ever found. Herky Jerky is the official snack of the Randi Rhodes Air Force, and it comes in elk and buffalo, beef, and bacon. Oh yes, bacon, hot, mild, 14 other incredible flavors. And for the month of May, $6 off any order of $60 or more. Just use promo code SPRING. Free shipping as always when you order 2 packs or more. Try the venison, the beef, the buffalo, the bacon, the elk. Try the sticks. Try the slabs. Beef, elk, venison, bacon sticks. The most amazing thing you have ever had. The sticks have the right bite to them. The flavor is amazing, delicious, and fresh every time. And $6 off your order of 60 or more. Visit herkyjerky.com right now. herkyjerky.com.
Now, the top of the hour on the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn presents the Green News Report.
Virginia is now uniquely positioned to become a leader in the effort to reduce carbon emissions and stave off the most dramatic consequences of climate change.
Virginia governor sets up carbon cap and trade system.
What this really is about is taking away public lands from the American people.
Bears Ears National Monument targeted for repeal on behalf of oil and gas industry. EPA gets an earful on which pollution regulations to repeal or not. Plus,
Glacier National Park is slowly losing what it's named after. Its famous glaciers.
See it while you still can. National Park glaciers are going.
All of those stories and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
In fact, I've been criticized by some of my opponents as saying you put somebody in charge of the EPA who sued the EPA 13, 14, 15 times. My response to that is they deserved it.
Okay, so what did we do to deserve you, Scott Pruitt? This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, as the administration and its EPA administrator, Scott Pruitt, do whatever they can to abandon the environment, it's being left up to states and state governors to try to save it.
That's absolutely right. Virginia's Democratic Governor Terry McAuliffe on Tuesday signed an executive order to create a cap-and-trade system for the state's power plants. Cap-and-trade is a market-based mechanism that caps the emissions from power plants and allows them to trade and sell their unused allowances to essentially profit from reducing their emissions. Virginia is grappling with rising sea levels that are already causing nuisance flooding in coastal cities. Governor McAuliffe said since President Trump is rolling back climate policies, states must now take the lead to fight climate change.
Virginia cannot afford to sit idly by as the new administration rolls back common sense policies. The citizens of our Commonwealth want and expect us to confront this issue. That is why we are announcing bold action today.
You know, it's strange. We hear all the time from Republicans that cap-and-trade legislation will destroy the economy. Odd that the governor of Virginia and the governors of California and elsewhere would want to destroy their own economy.
Funny, it's actually turning out to be a helpful part of the economy in California. Internationally, as the U.S. falls behind because of President Trump's policy reversals, the world's other two largest emitters are making fast gains. According to a new analysis from carbontracker.org, China and India, the world's two most populous countries, are making such rapid progress in cutting the growth of their own carbon emissions that they're on track to not only meet, but beat their emissions reduction pledges under the United Nations Paris Climate Agreement.
Weird. We were told that would kill the economy, too.
Meanwhile, in Montana, if you want to see Glacier National Park, you should probably go sooner rather than later. A new report from the U.S. Geological Survey says that the glaciers the park is named for are disappearing. Since just the 1960s, the glaciers have shrunk 40% on average. Some have shrunk as much as 85%. Out of about 150 glaciers in the park in the late 1800s, there are now only 26, still big enough to qualify for the name. Meanwhile, the Trump administration's Environmental Protection Agency got quite an earful when it asked for public comment on which pollution regulations to repeal in response to an executive order from President Trump. Turns out people like their clean air and clean water. The Washington Post reports the EPA received more than 55,000 comments, with defenders opposed to rolling back EPA pollution rules, outnumbering industry critics by 73-1.
Wow. So they had opened up a line to ask people what we should do away with, what rules, what regulations we should do away with. And everyone called and said, keep the regulations in place?
That's right.
Wow.
The EPA comment docket is now closed, but the Interior Department is now taking public comments on which of your national monuments you'd like to keep. A Trump executive order directs Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke to recommend recently designated monuments for repeal. You can tell him what you think at regulations.gov. One of the monuments targeted for repeal by the oil and gas industry is the new Bears Ears National Monument in Utah. Bears Ears was protected by President Obama back in December after a years-long effort by Native American tribes trying to protect their ancestral lands from rampant looting. Utah's state and federal lawmakers are lobbying to strip Bears Ears of protected status. Attorney Matt Campbell of the Native American Rights Fund said on a recent broadcast, it's a blatant attempt to open Bears Ears to mining, drilling, and fracking.
What this really is about is taking away public lands from the American people to free them up for resource exploitation. And the tribes view this area as very important. there's hundreds of thousands of artifacts and archaeological sites and landmarks and objects of historic and scientific interest within all the regions of Bears Ears.
The Interior Department has purposely made the Bears Ears public comment period very short. You can make your voice heard, again, by leaving a comment at regulations.gov.
Where?
Regulations.gov.
Got it. For all of those stories and the ones we couldn't get to, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone? It'd be a paradise to put up a fucking...
This has been the Green News Report on the top of the hour on the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn.
Mary had a little man. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America. From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream.
Change has come to America.
Believe it. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
And so, Bob Woodward, we are faced with two options with Mike Pence, a man I've known for a long time, a man I've served with, a man that I like very much personally, like his family very much personally. But as it pertains to Michael Flynn, as it pertains to Rod Rosenstein and the firing of Donald Trump, as it pertains to more and more things,
the firing of Donald Trump.
Yeah. Mike Pence, the Vice President of the United States, is either a sucker and a dupe for Donald Trump, is being set up that way to go out and lie again, or he's a liar. There is no middle ground. And if it is the first, I think it's about time for Mike Pence to go to Donald Trump and say, as I think most of us would, if you set me up to be your liar again, I'm walking.
Well, but it's not just Pence. It's the whole team in the White House. You've got, as you look at this from some distance, it's very clear Trump and this team were not ready for the presidency. Not even.
Okay, Bob, you got to be played by Robert Redford and All the President's Men, but there is a point there that, believe it or not, Joe Scarborough was trying to make, and that is there are really only two choices when you look at Mike Pence. And, you know, when you look at the articles that came out today, and it says, you know, that Trump was bragging to the Russians that he fired that nut job Comey, and now the pressure of Russia and the investigation is off him, and he's not under investigation. And he tells this to the Russians in real time while the Russians are in the Oval Office. Okay, and then his staff, somebody in the official White House staff, on the official White House staff, is taking these notes and reads them to a New York Times reporter, and then a second official confirms the factual nature that these are the notes, and Spicer decides that he's not going to dispute that these are the notes, and this is the story being told. And then you also see that that Pence was told, as the transition team leader, that Flynn was under investigation by the FBI for criminal activity having to do with Turkey and the Russians. And Mike Pence keeps denying, oh, this is the first I ever heard of it. What, you know, I was lied to and I didn't know. And, you know, remember this. This is like the famous, Brett Baer interview.
Former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn has filed with the Department of Justice as a foreign agent for making more than $500,000 as a lobbyist, essentially, for Turkey. Your reaction to that, considering that, doesn't that mean, Mr. Vice President, that even if he didn't lie to you about what the Russian ambassador said or didn't say, that you would have had to fire him anyway?
Let me say, hearing that story today was the first I heard of it. And I fully support the decision that President Trump made to ask for General Flynn's resignation.
You're disappointed by the story?
The first I heard of it, and...
How many times did you have to say, first I heard of it, first I heard of it? Okay, so when you look at the other article that came out today that said the Russia probe reaches a current White House official. While everybody is speculating it's Jared because Jared lied on his clearance application, left out that he met with Kislyak, and left out that he met with one of the biggest banks in Russia. Left it off, left it out, and his lawyer, of course, cleared it up for me today. I have no questions. He said, he prematurely filed that application, and sooner or later, he'll update it. So everybody thinks it's Jared. I think it might be Pence or Reince, because if you look at the timeline on Mike Pence, he has this strange habit, ongoing and repetitive habit, of claiming only to be aware of major issues, especially to do with the Russians, only after they become public. And that is why conservative media has this whole stack here. This whole stack here is all about these are the GOP or Republican. I won't say GOP, but these are writers who are conservative, who have been writing and writing and writing. Trump doesn't embody what's wrong with Washington. Pence does. The Trump can't seem to stop telling the truth. Kathleen Parker. The guardrails can't contain Trump. Make the guardrails bigger. Charles Krauthammer. Richard Cohen again writing. It's this whole pile here is nothing but people who believe in conservatism writing endlessly that the problem is not just Trump, but it's Pence. So that when Woodward is asked for a comment, and he says, it's the whole, everybody. Yeah, that's worthless, Bob. That's worthless. Okay? Robert Redford played you. Leave it to Carl now. Poor Carl. He had to be played by Dustin Hoffman. Little tiny, teeny tiny Dustin. Great actor, but tiny teeny. Like shorter than Cruz. Yeah. He's an itty bitty. And you got Robert Redford. So call it a life already and leave it to Bernstein. Although Bernstein, yeah, he took a backseat to a very powerful. He was Nora Ephron's husband. Can you imagine what that house was like? She's sitting there typing all these, great love stories. Harry Met Sally, and You've Got Mail, and just typing and crying and weeping in front of the computer, and and he's knocking on doors, going, "Have you ever investigated the committee to reelect the president?" Creep, a poor guy. So I think it might be Pence. January 4th, 2017, Pence was the head of the Trump transition team. Flynn told the Trump transition team on the 4th of January. They're not even sworn in yet. He wasn't the national security advisor yet. Flynn tells the transition team, who is Mike Pence? Hey, I want you to know something. I'm under investigation by the FBI. Apparently, I got ties to Russia and Turkey, and I never claimed them. And I did take money. And Pence claims he's unaware that Flynn was a foreign agent until the news breaks on March 9th, 2017, and Flynn lied to him. Didn't they get that letter? Yeah. Elijah Cummings sent a letter to Mike Pence personally. Don't make Flynn national security advisor. Guy's under FBI investigation. And by the way, violated several statutes. And you really don't want somebody as the last guy in the room with the president of the United States making national security decisions when he's a compromised, blackmailable dude. It's just not smart. And Pence is sitting there to say, this is the first I heard of it on March 9th. That doesn't.
Former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn has filed with the Department of Justice as a foreign agent for making more than $500,000 as a lobbyist, essentially, for Turkey. Your reaction to that, considering that, doesn't that mean, Mr. Vice President, that even if he didn't lie to you about what the Russian ambassador said or didn't say, that you would have had to fire him anyway?
Let me say, hearing that story today was the first I heard of it.
There is no way that does that hold water? No, it's a trick question. Seriously, there is no way that could be possibly true. The same day, January 26th, that Sally Yates then warns the White House. Everybody's warned the White House. Flynn freaking told them. Then Sally Yates toddles up there, 6 days after he is sworn in, and she warns that Flynn is compromised. He's blackmailable. I really need to come over. I need to talk to you. This is top secret. This is something of very, And Pence, on his Twitter feed, if you want to go check it out, look at the January 26th tweets that Pence sent out. He confirms he's also in the building that day, and he denies that Flynn had any improper contact with Russians until the news finally goes public and breaks and is printed on February 9th. So he knew on February 9th. So why is he sitting there on March 9th going, yesterday was the first day? It doesn't hold water. It's a lie. And so when I see Russia probe reaches current White House official, people familiar with the case say, everybody's speculating it's little Jared, I think it's Mike Pence. And so do some other conservative writers, okay? Like, for instance, Richard Cohen. This goes back a few days already, okay? This goes back to the 15th, and he wrote, Trump doesn't embody what's wrong with Washington. Pence does. He said, when history holds its trial to account for the Donald Trump presidency, and Richard Cohen is like one of the uber right-wing neocons, okay? This is like a war guy. This is a guy I would never agree with on anything except this. When history holds its trial to account for the Donald Trump presidency, Trump himself will be acquitted on grounds of madness. Remember I brought this up the other day? History will look at his behavior, his erratic and childish lying, his flamboyant ignorance of history itself, and pronounce the man, like George III, a cuckoo, for whom restraint but not punishment was necessary. Such will not be the case for Mike Pence, the toady vice president and the personification of much of what has gone wrong in Washington. On any given day, Pence will do his customary spot-on imitation of a bobblehead. Standing near Trump in the Oval Office, he will nod his head robotically as the president says one asinine thing after another, and then maybe along with others, he will be honored with a lie or a version of the truth so mangled by contradictions and fabrications that a day in the White House is like a week on LSD. And then remember, we got the phone call from the drug counselor who's been, clean and sober, thank God, for 15 years, who said, hey, not all drug abusers voted for Trump. I will say anybody that is still down with Trump is addicted to dope, because Trump is a dope. You may quote me. All right, Paul in Seattle.
Randy, hey.
Hey.
First time, long time.
Oh, love you. Long time.
I remember when you were on, Stephanie Miller was saying you were coming back. I nearly cried like a little bitch. To quote Trump. I donated. I subscribed to the podcast.
Oh, man.
I will. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I will come and nestle in my armpit. I will love you a long time.
Good. No, I mean, it's great. I'm glad you're healthy and well.
Yes,
First, really just two super quick questions. First, are you ready for President Orrin Hatch? I'm just so delighted that Mitt Romney will be deprived of being the first Mormon president. Go on. 84 years old, on his way out, still wants to run for an 8th or a 9th term, and now Romney is trying to get Orrin Hatch a Senate seat and become he's trying to work on a deal where he becomes like one of the key members of the Senate, even, being there for 5 minutes, prophetically. But the real question, though, Randy, go ahead.
But he owns the bankrupt Clear Channel.
Oh, God.
So, of course, he's qualified. We like guys that take everything into bankruptcy.
Oh, God. It's funny, Randy. I recruit data scientists. I studied journalism. I remember I was 24 years old when I started listening to you in 2004 when you were on Air America, that whole mess. And now I got out of journalism and into recruiting, and I recruit data scientists. So I will try to find some good data scientists for you to help you out. I know you've been interested in that.
Oh, my God. Don't tease me in this manner.
No, I won't. So, everyone. So I live in Seattle, right? And I won't say what company I work for, but it's one of the most well-known companies in the world, and we're all liberals up here. So I will try to see if I can get some help. Because I seriously could probably find some people, but I'd have to be quiet about it so I don't get spanked by the corporate people. But really, in all seriousness, though, the real question is that you had that great bet with that gentleman from Indiana, you'd have to buy him a house if Trump didn't get impeached or something. And so the real question is whether this son of a bitch is going to get impeached before or after the midterms. Because, I'm only 37, which is young comparatively, right? And I'm getting more gray hair every day now. And it's not because of my damn kids waking me up at 5 a.m. every day. It's because of this damn Trump and Pence. And when is this guy either going to resign or get impeached? Because I don't get the end game here. I mean, Mike Pence is one of these guys. He's like, if you had to design an awful Republican, Mike Pence would be it. And I don't know why they don't just get rid of Trump, get him impeached, and then move on with life, because he's completely insane. So
well, one of the things that I really enjoyed about reading and talking to Michael D'Antonio is that he thinks that Trump's ego is such that he would resign before he would become the first removed president. So that's kind of interesting. And so now we know, and I want everybody out there, whether you agree with me or don't agree with me about anything, that the GOP is failing you in this way. All it would take is a Mitch McConnell and a Paul Ryan to go to the White House and tell him it's over. You will be impeached. You will be removed. And he would rather resign than face that kind of music. And so now you know that the GOP is completely and wholly, motivated not by good government, not by what's best for the American people, not by, healthcare reform, and not by tax reform or anything like that. They are only interested in holding on to power. This is their joker. This is their con man, and they will stick by him till the bitter end.
Well, that's right. The only thing more appealing to Trump than money is power, and I mean that's why.
And that's why these conservatives, I won't say they have conscience, because the things that they've advocated for are disgusting, like torture. But some of them, like Kathleen Parker, and they're all writing op-eds in the Washington Post. Every single conservative that you could think of who has experience in presidential politics has written an op-ed going, get rid of him.
I keep thinking back to the election night. I was starting a new job. I had a bottle of wine in a hotel room. I knew Hillary was going to lose because of the goddamn Comey thing. I figured that's it.
Right.
There's no other way you can win.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah. That's
everyone was messaging me, asking me if I was like, hey, I'm fine. You're all a mess. Like, let's just, let's try to take back the House and the Senate.
They kept calling me, and they kept calling me and going, you lost. And I kept saying to them, no, America lost. And that's really what happened.
Oh, it's just, my wife became a U.S. citizen before, a few years before the election. It's like, oh, that's her first choice is Trump and, Hillary, which I was fine with. But yeah, it's a real mess. I just would remind everyone.
Well, see what you can do for me. Go find me a digital marketing company that doesn't believe that I need a new website, but rather has a strategy for marketing. That would be really a big plus.
I will do it.
Thank you. All right, have a good weekend. Enjoy your wine. More wine, please. More wine. No, we get to drink this weekend. The president is out of the country. Woohoo! 23 after.
The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
Hi, we're back, and everything is possible again. Isn't it beautiful? Well, if you want to keep it this way, buy a stinking podcast. Oh, yes. You have to buy a stinking podcast. And you get that at RandiRhodes.com, where we're open all day, all night long. RandiRhodes.com. Get your stinking podcast.
Dragon Con is one of my favorite events. The Comic-Con of the East, Dragon Con is one of the biggest comic conventions in the world and a guilty pleasure for me and my brother every Labor Day. But it has also been life-changing. Welcome to She Persisted. I'm Melissa Carter for the Progressive Voices Network. During one panel, a librarian was expressing his frustration with schools and libraries who don't take graphic novels seriously. He credited these books for saving his education since as a child he suffered from a learning disorder, and the only books he could read growing up were graphic novels. His personal story sparked my realization. Now, if you visit my library at home, you will see on the shelves mainly graphic novels. I always assumed my love of art and story was the reason that I chose graphic novels. I was always the slowest reader in class, often turning the pages and skipping paragraphs to keep up with my friends during quiet reading. By the age of 20, I had only read 2 novels to their completion. When my brother and I played board games as kids, I would immediately hand him the instructions and ask him to verbally tell me how to play the game. When reading news copy I wrote for radio, I would need slash marks between words for what I told myself were breath marks. I now realize those marks were to keep from losing my place in the chaos of the vibrating words. For me, letters visually jiggle on the page, and when I read for an extended period of time, I see a bright stream of electric current that seems to flow between the words and letters. The profession of broadcast media requires very little reading. I always knew I wanted to be in media and someday be on the air, but was it actually possible my life path was heavily influenced by my undiagnosed reading disability? The natural next step was for me to be tested, but after researching the expense of those tests and the fact that I have adapted well so far into my older age, I chose not to be tested. By never knowing it was an obstacle, it simply never became one. This has been She Persisted for the Progressive Voices Network. I'm Melissa Carter.
Well, new economic numbers are out, and the Trump administration saw the worst economic growth in the last 3 years. And the really scary part is, who knows where the economy is going from here? That's why it is the perfect time to buy gold. Call ITM Trading now and speak to a precious metals consultant and ask for a free gold kit. Just say you're a Randi Rhodes listener and you'll get a complimentary copy of their newsletter. This issue examines 3 troubling economic problems that the Trump administration must solve or risk sending the U.S. economy into a full-blown recession or even worse. The newsletter also examines how you can benefit from these current economic conditions and how to take the right steps to protect yourself. ITM Trading has a long history of publishing original material that breaks down the complex financial system, enabling you to make informed financial decisions. You will love this information. Call my friends at ITM Trading today at 1-888-OWN-GOLD and ask for a free gold kit and get the complimentary newsletter. 1-888-OWN-GOLD. 1-888-OWN-GOLD.
All things Randy at RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Man, this. Oh, I'm reading this Washington Post article as I'm talking to you. It's unfreaking believable. Listen to this. Let's start at the top here. Okay. Russia probe reaches current White House official. I think it's Pence. Okay. People familiar with the case say it's by Devlin Barrett and Matt Zapotowski. And the reason why I say the names is because most people never read their names. The reporters in D.C., the reporters in New York, the reporters at the Times, the reporters at the Post, the reporters at the Wall Street Journal, the reporters they are working their butts off. People are jobbing I have never seen the press do such a great job. Listen, I love the newspaper. I've always loved a newspaper. But this is just an amazing time to be reading the newspaper. It's so good. It's so good is all I could tell you. So if you have to buy a subscription for $9.99 a year to the New York Times, do it. If you have to buy, subscription, I don't think you have to buy a subscription to the Washington Post. I think you can just read it. I'm not sure because I'm always logged in. So I don't know if that's, yeah, you do. So you buy yourself a couple and buy a stinking podcast for God's sake, because I'll read them to you. All right. So this is what this article says. This is unreal. And this was at 3:00. Okay. This was just as we were waiting to go on the air. 3:02. This actually came out. The law enforcement investigation into possible coordination between Russia and the Trump campaign has identified a current White House official as a significant person of interest, showing that the probe is reaching into the highest levels of government, according to people familiar with the matter. The senior White House advisor under scrutiny by investigators is someone close to the president, according to these people, who would not further identify the official. I think it's because they're saying advisor rather than, just keeping the word as official. That's leading people to believe it's Jared or also Reince. I think it could be Reince too. But anyway, all this stuff that's being written about Pence makes me believe it's Pence. Anyway, it says the revelation comes as the investigation also appears to be entering a more overtly active phase, with investigators shifting from work that has remained largely hidden from the public to conducting interviews and using a grand jury to issue subpoenas. The intensity of the probe is expected to accelerate in the coming weeks, the people said. Sources emphasized that investigators remain keenly interested in people who previously wielded influence in the Trump campaign. Okay, so that would be Manafort, that would be Page, that would be Sessions, that would be, everybody that's, well, it's not Sessions because he's actually part of the cabinet. He is, Beauregard is our attorney general, but recused, meaning Rod Rosenstein gets to make all the decisions now with regard to the Russia probe, which is, he did write that Hillary memo. He did do it. He wrote it after he believed Comey was fired. We found out yesterday from Claire McCaskill and Richard Durbin that was true, because he told them that in that meeting that he had with the senators. Anyway, the sources emphasized that investigators remain keenly interested in people who previously wielded influence in the Trump campaign and administration, but are no longer part of it, including former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn and former campaign chair Paul Manafort. But now we're talking current. Now we're talking people serving right now, close to the president, the highest levels, White House. So this is just unbelievable. And then the New York Times puts out an article that Trump told the Russians in the Oval Office that firing that nut job, Comey, eased great pressure from the Russia probe. He told that to the Russians. It's just, this is a shock. Every day just shocks me. Every day. I love people go, nothing shocks me anymore. Everything shocks me. Everything. That's probably why I am the way I am. I'm always curious. Everything shocks me. Okay, Jim in Huntington Beach, California.
Happy Cancer-Free Friday, Randy.
Thank you, you bastard.
Yeah, it's right. Okay, so where do you think Trump's going to spend the rest of his lonely, crazy years? I think he's going to be in exile. I think, Trump powers in Istanbul or maybe Russia. That's why he's cozying up with all these dictators, because Mark, I'm taking sucker bets with my friends. He will not spend his final years in this country. He's going to be in exile.
Well, if he's going to be in exile, then he needs to pick a country that doesn't have extradition with the United States. So Russia is a good one because they don't have it. And Saudi is also good. So maybe he's looking at houses. I don't know. Maybe while he's watching the all-male Toby Keith concert and delivering a speech on Islam, what could go wrong there? And Melania is, free to do what she pleases. As long as she doesn't drive, she could go house hunting.
I'm here in Rohrbacher's 45th, and there's a lot of the people are so prone to these conspiracy theories, and I think maybe someday the conspiracy theory we will hear is that Trump was he was a Democratic plan to destroy the Republican Party from the inside out. Him and Hillary planned it out years ago, and mission accomplished. And here's
that's a good one. I'm gonna use that. Believe me, that's a very, very good one.
And I'll leave you with this. I think a future headline we'll see in Washington Post maybe is indispensable.
Indispensable. Everybody's sticky today. Thank you.
I got to work on my Orrin Hatch impersonation. Everyone has a great, tremendous weekend. Okay.
All right. Thank you. You have all the best words. Thank you. The best words. You have the best ones. The greatest words. Really. Thank you. Everybody's very sticky today. You know why? Because he's out of the country. And he's going to a country that has no extradition. Saudi does not have extradition with the United States. You can only hope that we actually put the, people who have, although Saudi Arabia was not one of the 6 countries we would ban people from, even though on 9/11, 15 of the 19 hijackers were from Saudi. Isn't that something? Small world. The other 2, I think one was from Yemen. Yeah. Osama bin Laden, the bin Laden family was from Yemen, moved to Saudi, paved all their roads, the bin Laden construction company. But we didn't put them on the no Muslim list. But it would be interesting. It would be interesting if they had a no infidel ban and they wouldn't even allow them to land after, 14, 15 hours in the air. Or if we would actually say anybody that, comes from Saudi, anybody is banned from reentry. Then we wouldn't have to deal with him anymore. Okay, Sue in Sonoma.
Yes. Hi, Randy.
Hi, Sue.
Long time, first time.
Wow,
actually.
I love that. Love that.
Okay. I'm wondering if you have heard anything more about the Russian that was picked up in Spain, I guess by Spanish intelligence, that the feds were trying to get extradited here. Apparently someone got to his wife, and she claimed that he had told her he had created a virus that affected the voting and tabulating machines to give the election to Trump. So I'm just wondering if you heard anything more about that. And
no.
Oh, okay, because I heard it from you originally. You mentioned
No, you
it.
don't.
Oh, I didn't? Okay. Then I must have heard it somewhere else.
Yeah,
but,
you did.
Anyway, okay. And one more thing was I have watched the Zambla documentary.
Yes.
Have you watched it? Yes. And it's really quite breathtaking. It's too bad.
You know why it's so good? It's so good not just because you have guys like Michael D'Antonio who actually knows Donald Trump, but because you have these investigators and because you have these lawyers who are on the other side of the Bayrock case. They're prosecuting Felix Sater's, Bayrock. And because you have, James Henry, who is a criminal investigator who investigates, he's a lawyer too, who investigates money laundering and they all have the goods.
Yeah.
So,
and then apparently he's also involved with some guy that's deals in blood diamonds. That's supposedly the next the next part coming up. So I don't know. I see him out of here real soon. I don't think it's going to be a long time. I think he's going to quit.
You know what's right now? It's just a point of interest. You know what's right next door to Trump Tower is De Beers.
Oh, you're kidding?
No.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's
right
my
there.
I mean, so like Trump Tower is.
So
on
have you seen the part about the blood diamond?
No, not yet. No.
I think that's coming up next.
Yeah, I think it's part two. Part two.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that ought to be interesting.
It is.
And the connection to De Beers. Anyway, thanks for everything you do. And if you hear anything more about this guy in Spain, the thing is, Putin's been cleaning up after himself. Guys tend to jump out windows with the glass still in it, and
or guys, who are very busy lawyers decide that a great fun thing to do after work would be to move a bathtub to their 4th floor apartment through the window.
Right.
Only to be crushed by their own bathtub. Yes.
By their own bathtub, yes. Because that happens a lot.
Yeah, well, wasn't it Clint Watts? Clint Watts is a brilliant guy, too, from the FBI, former FBI guy. Clint Watts said, you want to know what's going on, follow the dead Russians.
Yes, exactly.
So
maybe the guy in Spain's already dead.
For people who don't want to watch documentaries because they don't know whether or not to believe them or whatever, why don't you just go to C-SPAN and Google C-SPAN Clint Watts testimony?
Oh, yes. Okay. Right, because I did watch it.
Oh, it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. This is a former FBI
they didn't like
guy.
it. The Republicans weren't expecting any of that, I don't think.
I don't know why they weren't. Donald Trump ran attacking the intelligence community, attacking law enforcement, meaning the FBI, attacking...
And you know the old saying, don't pick a fight with people that buy ink by the barrel.
Exactly. I mean, what did he think? That they were going to give him a pass, that he was going to just be able to trash everything that they did, and they were going to trash Comey, who was beloved at the FBI, by the way, that they were going to just sit down and take it? No. This all gave them, this put a fire under their ass, and they're all doing everything they can now to investigate Manafort and Flynn and the current administration currently serving, and I mean Jeff Sessions is going to be looked at, Rex Tillerson is going to be looked at.
Be there. Jesus, I mean, I read somewhere, I think it was on Alternet, that the intel community has said they want to see Trump die in jail. That's how convinced they are.
Well, I wouldn't go by that. You know what I mean? Because then, you're going to have these crazy conservatives say, it's the deep state, and they got it out for him.
Oh, I know.
It isn't
that.
that.
That was a Bannon concoction.
Well, listen, Bannon and Pence both come from talk radio, okay?
Yeah.
Just keep that in mind. Every conspiracy theory you ever heard hatched came from talk radio. So...
now we have talk radio in the White House.
We have a vice president of the United States who was a radio talk show host in Indiana, and we got Steve Bannon, who was a radio talk show host on Breitbart Radio on Sirius XM. Really? Yeah. This is who the best America can do, a freaking talk show hosts?
No, we're down the rabbit hole here.
Yeah, we are. We are. So, all right, Evan in San Jose.
Hey, Randy.
Hi, Evan.
Hi.
Hi.
I don't get to talk to you very often, but because I work hard, but I appreciate being able to talk to you. You look great, by the way.
Oh, thank
you for all you do.
You're welcome.
I think, these people that are in the administration now are trying to do as much as they can to steal and rig the system before it all ends, don't you think?
Yes, I do. I think they want to squeeze every nickel and dime out of Medicaid and redistribute it to the very wealthy and, say, at least we got that done. Yes. And I think that they will support, a papier-mâché doll as president if it meant that they could transfer wealth from the very poor to and the very senior to the very wealthy. Yes, they would accept a llama as president, okay? Seriously.
Yeah, and even the EPA guy trying to just
Scott
give
Pruitt
everything to industry. Yeah,
Oh,
Pruitt.
please. And then you got a guy at HHS who he's a doctor who trades on pharmaceutical stocks and hip replacements and medical devices while he's drawing up legislation that would legislate hip replacements and pharmaceuticals. It's amazing.
Yeah. And
why do you think every commercial on the TV is for Big Pharma? Why? Because that prevents them from really reporting on Big Pharma.
Yeah, so who's giving us the news is them.
Right.
Yeah, and who knows what Mnuchin is doing or DeVos. I just think there's all these people working in these positions to do as much as they can because they see the end come. They knew the end would come pretty soon.
Well, they want to destroy the government. I mean, there's no question that they find regulations that protect us from pesticides and from, antibiotics in our food and from hormones in our milk. They find these pesky, things with putting that on a label. God forbid they should tell you that, this chicken really shouldn't weigh 10 pounds. It's a chicken, not a turkey. It should really weigh 3 pounds, but we shot it up with hormones. Now look how giant the breasticles are, really. I mean, you leave this country and you eat food and you go, wow, that doesn't taste... You know how everybody here says everything tastes like chicken? That's because chicken doesn't taste like chicken anymore. It doesn't. When you leave the country and you eat food outside this country, you are completely shocked at the different way it tastes. Chicken in Costa Rica, chicken in Italy, chicken in Spain, chicken in Russia even. They're 3 pounds and they taste like, chicken. They don't taste like sponges.
Yeah, and so the comment line for the national monuments is open. I think we do have a role to play. While all this stuff in the FBI and all these investigations have their role, but we have a role to play too. So I just think people need to keep protesting or making their voices heard. And the national monument thing is up.
Oh, yeah.
It's easy to find.
Oh, my God.
And all you have to do is look at a picture of one of these places to just, your heart, cries for what could happen to that pristine nature that's out there. We're so rich with that.
Here's the bottom line about all this, the fracking, the drilling, the this, and the ruining of, national monuments, Bears Ears and all that. Make what's there worthless, okay?
Yeah.
That's it. Oil, gas, make it worthless. Make it worthless. Go to solar, go to wind, hydropower.
For a commercial-free, on-demand, whenever, wherever listening experience, visit randyrhodes.com for your personal premium podcast today.
Buy a stinking podcast.
You're listening to Win Workers Independent News, a Diversified Media Enterprises production. I'm Doug Cunningham. The AFL-CIO says renegotiating NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, offers potential for progress for workers, but a good outcome is far from guaranteed. AFL-CIO President Rich Trumka says working people have set a high standard for what we need in a NAFTA renegotiation. Among them are elevation and effective enforcement of workers' rights and environmental standards, eliminating excessive corporate privileges, prioritizing good jobs, and safeguarding democracy. Republicans generally claim to hate government regulations, but tend to want to tightly regulate or abolish union rights, most often with the goal of weakening labor unions financially and politically. One case in point is H.R. 1461. That anti-union bill by Texas Republican Representative Jody Arrington seeks to weaken and cripple AFGE, the union representing VA workers. AFGE President David Cox Sr. says this bill undermines both federal workers and Veterans Administration health care. H.R. 1461 attacks official time, a collective bargaining agreement that allows VA workers and AFGE time to work on official union business. It also goes after automatic dues deductions to attack AFGE's finances. Cox says official time is one of the best ways for federal employees to bring forward evidence of waste, fraud, and abuse. Cox says AFGE uses official time to protect whistleblowers on issues large and small. Cox says AFGE is sick and tired of the witch hunt in Washington that's putting federal workers under attack. He says the sole intention of H.R. 1461 is to, quote, break the back of the union and undermine federal employees' rights at work. Cox says if Republicans really wanted to help the VA improve service to veterans, they would move quickly to fill the 49,000 job openings at the VA. Workers and their supporters, including New York State lawmakers, rallied in New York City Thursday against corporate use of forced arbitration contracts. They announced legislation to end the widespread use of forced arbitration contracts that decimate worker and consumer rights to access the courts when dealing with wage theft, discrimination, fraud, and exploitation. A new report called Justice for Sale, How Corporations Used Forced Arbitration to Exploit Working Families, lays out the problem. Corporations used forced arbitration contracts to stack the deck in their favor in disputes. They take away the right of workers and consumers to pursue justice in the courts, forcing them into corporate-designed binding arbitration systems instead. The New York legislation is called the Empowering People in Rights Enforcement Worker Protection Act. It would extend the reach of public enforcement of worker and consumer protections. Backers of the legislation in New York say it would ensure that employee whistleblowers can take companies that violate New York's labor laws to court. You've been listening to WIN, Workers Independent News. For more information, visit laborradio.org.
The Randi Rhodes Show is brought to you by our partners at ITM Trading. Call them at 1-888-OWN-GOLD and ask for a free gold kit. 1-888-OWN-GOLD.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Hey! Corporations are people, my friend.
All right, so Benjamin Witt is a friend of James Comey, and he sat down with PBS NewsHour last night and started to explain how Comey had been feeling about Donald Trump, and apparently when Trump became, today is day 120. It's going very quickly. It's very quickly. So much winning. I'm bored of the winning. Anyway, he sat down and he told PBS that the day that, the 2 days after Trump's inauguration, he had this little get together in the White House in the Blue Room. I've actually been in this room. And that Comey positioned himself in front of blue curtains in a blue suit and stood as far away from Trump as he could muster in the Blue Room. It's a small room, actually. And he did that to camouflage himself so that Trump would not reach out to him. And Trump did it anyway by saying, hey, James, come over here. Hey, you're more famous than I am, pointing to the Hillary. And that this was the beginning of Comey's disgust with Trump.
When Comey was asked to come with a bunch of other law enforcement agents to the White House soon after the inauguration.
Comey really did not want to go to that meeting. There were a lot of Democrats who kind of blame him for Trump. So he was particularly sensitive to the idea of a sort of show of intimacy or closeness with Trump. That said, he didn't feel that he could say no to an invitation from the president. So he went, and it's actually a funny story. He really wanted to kind of blend in and not be singled out. And he's 6'8", so it's when you're
kind of tough to do
when
that.
you're 6'8", it's really hard to blend in. He's wearing, if you watch the video of it, he's wearing a blue blazer, and he stands in the part of the room that is as far from Trump as it is physically possible to be, and also against blue drapes that are the same color as his.
He chose that spot?
He chose that spot because it was, like almost like a chameleon, camouflaged against the wall. And then at the end, right at the end, Trump singles him out in a fashion that he regarded as sort of, calculated to maximally drive home this sensitivity among Democratic voters, which is to say, I forget the exact quote, hey, look, he's even more famous than I am.
He's become more famous than me.
And he extends his hand kind of preemptively, and Trump grabs the hand and kind of pulls him into a hug, but the hug is entirely one-sided. And Comey was just completely disgusted by the episode.
Oh my God. And there's more, okay? There's more. Comey was not very big on the Rod Rosenstein appointment as Deputy Attorney General.
He's a respected career prosecutor who's been in government a long time and served in both the Bush and Obama administrations. The last time I saw Jim at the FBI, he was this was shortly before Rosenstein was confirmed, 2 or 3 weeks before Rosenstein was confirmed, and his confirmation at that point was a foregone conclusion. And I expressed to Jim that that's a good thing. At least you'll have a deputy. And I was rather surprised at how unenthusiastic Comey was that there was going to be a Senate-confirmed Deputy Attorney General who was Rod Rosenstein. What he specifically said was, and I'll never forget it, he said, Rod is a survivor.
Meaning he's lived through Democratic and Republican administrations.
Yeah, and you don't get to survive that long without making some compromises. And so he said, I have concerns. And I think what he was thinking at that moment was that if I was asked to give a loyalty oath, and the president has done these things to undermine me and to sort of bring me into the fold, what was he asked to do? Rod Rosenstein.
Oh my God. So he's saying Rod Rosenstein is a survivor in a negative way, meaning Rod Rosenstein can be bought. Rod Rosenstein is a guy who was supposed to, I told you, he was supposed to be on the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. Bush appointed him to that, but not soon enough, meaning that seat on the Fourth Circuit stayed empty for 7 years. And then at the very end of the Bush administration, he said, okay, Rod, we're going to put you up on the Fourth Circuit. We're going to put you into the Senate for confirmation. But the Democrats in the Senate said, it's too close to the election. This is why I say that kind of talk about being too close to the election to confirm, Merrick Garland, that's political. There's a difference between politics and right and wrong. The idea that they would stall somebody's nomination to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals or any federal judgeship or to the Supreme Court, that's standard politics. There is nothing, that's why when people get so upset about the Merrick Garland, I've seen it a million times. It happened with Rod. Rod was supposed to be on the Fourth Circuit. They didn't nominate him till the very end of the Bush administration. Obama was incoming, and they said it's too late to actually have a confirmation. You should really leave it for the next president. The next president came in, Barack Obama, and he picked somebody else. So Rosenstein is, he's somebody that has been trying. He's a career employee. And when we talked to Richard Painter, and I asked him about Rod, he said the same damn thing. He said, what do you want from these career these career guys, meaning people who run for political or vie for political appointments, not people who, are career guys at the FBI who would never run for a political appointment. They would just, work their whole career like a Sally Yates, 27 years at the Department of Justice. That's a career FBI employee. versus a Rod Rosenstein who's, looking to be promoted, politically. And then this is why Benjamin Witz thinks President Trump fired James Comey.
In the end, why do you think Trump fired Comey?
Trump fired Jim Comey because the most dangerous thing in the world, if you're Donald Trump, is a person who tells the truth, is dogged, you can't control, and who is as committed as Comey is to the institutional independence of an organization that has the power to investigate you.
Done. Less than it took him 27 seconds to say. Comey was not going to give up. He saw, lawlessness. He saw that the president was trying to co-opt the FBI. I mean, this Lieberman thing, really? This Lieberman thing? Man has zero law enforcement experience. Zero. I know he was Attorney General in Connecticut. I understand that. But that is not law enforcement, okay? It's more white-collar crime. It's more, legislation. It's more, corruption inside the Connecticut legislature. Do you know it has to do with the governors, keeping the governors on the straight and narrow? It has nothing to do with counterterrorism. It has nothing to do with, law enforcement fraud or money laundering. Please, he's 75. Joe, you're 75 and you look 85. He's a hard 75. Just like, I think Kellyanne Conway had some fillers or something. I think that's why she was absent for a while. Yeah, she looks completely filled up, doesn't she? She looks like all of a sudden she's got dimples where there were hollows. Oh, it's just, it's amazing. All right, Patrick in Ohio.
Hi, Randy. First time, long time.
Oh, wow. A lot of first-timers today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I was telling Howard, I had this Spidey sense moment back when he had the meeting in the Oval Office with Kislyak and Lavrov.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, oh, my God, what if he gives out classified info to them directly? And lo and behold,
and
he did.
He does.
Yes. Well, I had the same moment when I heard about this overseas trip. My Spidey sense tingled, and I thought, oh, my God, what if he takes his whole family with him on this trip and just says, you know what, to hell with them all. I'm just going to push the button and shoot the missiles back at us.
Oh, God!
Detour the plane to Russia. And then, guess what? It'll be the white Bronco of the air, basically. I thought, oh, wonder what, Randy, had you heard if he's taking his whole family? I heard he's taking his son.
No, but where's Barron? Is Barron on that flight? Do we know?
I heard something this morning that he was.
He was. Oh, so I know he took Don Jr. I know he took Melania. I didn't.
Oh, God.
Oh.
I hate to be a downer, but geez.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Exactly.
All right, go put on your PJs and get some sleep.
I will.
All right, thank you. Oh, my God. Air Force One is the white Bronco. That's hysterical. Claire in Chicago. Oh, there she goes. Brother David.
Wave your little hand and whisper, so long, Donald, we ain't gonna take this crap no more. Unlike predecessor Reagan, first name Ronald, we will soon be showing you the door. Hi, sister, it's Friday, and he's out of the country.
Yes.
Quick alert ICE, quick alert FAA.
I would love to. I would love to.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep. Except then all the journalists would be trapped there too, and that's just not fair.
We'll get them out.
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
A quick shout out to the chat room.
Hi.
Keep doing what you're doing. It's fabulous. The donations are amazing. Tell everyone you know to start subscribing and liking and listening and buy a stinking podcast.
Okay,
there.
two
I've done my
things.
duties.
Okay, thank you. Two things this weekend. If you're watching this on YouTube over the weekend, please subscribe. Like right now.
Exactly.
Right now, subscribe. It's a teeny tiny little button they give you. They won't even improve the size of it. It's YouTube.
No, I know.
But please subscribe, and that way, all it's free, totally, utterly free. All that happens is you will get a notification when we go live, so you'll never miss a free live show. That's number one. And number two, please follow me at Randi Rhodes on Twitter. I have a goal of 45,000 followers. I really would like to complete that by the end of the month.
Well, I'm going to do my radical very best to make sure that happens.
Thank you.
I'm kind of with you. I think it could be Priebus. But I got to tell you, both Joy Reid and your former Scare America colleague, the Maddow, connected some mighty convincing dots about Vice President Doc Savage. I think it's all of them, Randy, frankly.
I think it's Pence. I really, really do. I think it's Pence, and I think there's too many conservatives putting pen to paper, writing about bobblehead Pence and trashing him and saying, he's the problem. He's the problem. So, I got a funny feeling it's Pence. It doesn't have to be just one, though. It could be Pence, and it could be Pence and Jared. It could be Pence and Jared and, Jeff Sessions. It could be Pence and Jared, Jeff Sessions, and Rex Tillerson. Woo!
Innovation. Innovation and creativity are democratic, American dream traits. If wielded courageously and honorably, the myth goes, these tools help anyone anywhere to change lives and shape their own fortune. Yeah, but now a divisive political and ethical pall smothers my spirits, and maybe yours too. The itchy woolen blanket of cynicism is spread wide and heavy. Deception and treachery seem to be the tools of choice to gain power and fortune in this country. Now, see what I did in that last paragraph? I talked myself right into a hole. What I'm doing here, this paragraph and the rest, this is my attempt to snap out of it, and maybe snap you out of it too. In the face of the current cultural and political climate in our country, it's more important than ever to advance creativity over cynicism, innovation over ideology. Creativity and innovation thrive on possibility and openness. Cynicism emanates from fear of vulnerability, and it comes from a demand for certainty in the midst of flux. Fighting cynicism breeds more cynicism, but cynicism disappears by itself when met with compassion, curiosity, and continuous forward motion. Here's how I'm at least trying to talk myself out of it. Here are the top 5 mental mantras I'm using to hold cynicism at bay and keep positive productivity on the rails. Number 1, stop ranting. Venting usually breeds more venting. Quit intoxicating myself with social media gossip and outrage regarding people and situations over which I have little or no control, mentioning no names that might rhyme with schmoddle schmump. Number 2, assess anger. Anger and cynicism can produce clever ideas, sure, but not necessarily useful, creative, and innovative ones. Don't embrace anger, and don't push it away either. Learn from it. A cynic can chill and dishearten with a single word. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Number 3, choose curiosity. Actively pursue what's new and next with a beginner's mind that allows for possibility and potential. Number 4, nevertheless, persist.